goodness, giving us all a heart attack. What happened?
Well, actually, what probably happened, so the doctor says, is something that happened to me when I was a kid. I probably got sunburnt when I was 7 or 8 or something like that, and it's sort of that seeds the melanoma, which many years later transpires. And I had my hair cut really short because we were going away at Christmas and I needed it to last for 6 weeks. And
so shorter than you would normally.
Yes, exactly. And Jared, my husband, went, "What's that?" Which was like a mole, tiny little mole, which was a little bit. I've never seen it, but I gather it was a bit red and a bit black and a bit yellow. So that's what makes them disturbing. We didn't really think any more about it. And then it was my birthday, January the 11th, and I was driving past...
So that was Christmas time?
That was Christmas.
You just carried on? No pain?
There was no pain.
Yeah.
And I get a bit of an itchy scalp in the winter anyway, so it was slightly itchy. And I could feel there was something, it was a bit raised, about the thickness of a 2p coin, maybe. And so on my birthday, I was driving past the doctor's surgery in Porth, in the Rhondda, in my constituency, and I thought, well, maybe I should just go in. Because I've heard of all these stories, and so I went in, and he said, "Oh well, I think that's probably a wart, but I'll send you under the special 2-week guarantee thing. I'll send you off to the specialist." So I went to the dermatologist, wonderful woman called Julie Martin, Dr. Julie Martin. She said, "I think that's a melanoma. To be honest, it's not a wart." And my heart sort of sank at that moment because I know that melanomas are a pretty nasty form of skin cancer. But I was very hopeful because the vast majority of them are early stages. And she said, so that was like 5 days after I'd see the GP. 5 days after seeing her, she was cutting it out.
Can we have a look? Is that all right?
Yeah, of course.
Can you turn your head
yeah,
the other
do you want
way?
me to...
There you go, so we can have a look. So she said...
I'm cutting it out next Monday. So she cut it out. I was fully awake for this. And...
So there, just a second while we're looking.
And I remember lying. They were playing A Little Respect, nice bit of erasure.
Right.
And then Mr. Blue Sky, whilst they were all the nurses were asking me about what was going to happen about Brexit. And we had a straw poll in the room, and
How are you feeling?
Brexit didn't win. So I feel... I have no pain in this. I'm not on any painkillers now.
At the time when that was...
when that happened, I was thinking, well, this is probably going to be all right. But then she said, I said, "What's it like?" She said, "Well, it's quite thick, you know." I thought, oh, God, I know thick's not good. But I thought, well... And then she said, "But I've known thick ones be fine." Anyway, maybe 8 days later, 9 days later...
So it then went off for analysis? It
goes off for analysis. She had me in, and I took my husband, because they say... This is one of the things I'd say to anybody. Take somebody with you when you're getting test results.
So what were you expecting? What had you said to Jared as you were heading to the appointment?
Well, we would, I'd been telling everybody, because I had a plaster on the back of my head and it was quite prominent, so everybody in Parliament was saying, "Gosh, what's that, Chris?" It's very obvious, when we're going through the division lobbies and so on, everybody could see it. And I was saying, look, 95% of melanomas are fine, you catch them in the early stages, absolutely fine, and so on, and it might not be a melanoma anyway. So I guess I'd kind of persuaded myself that. And the weird thing was when we arrived in the room... Sorry, just to say, it's really important to take somebody.
Sure.
Because you can't hear yourself what they say.
Yeah, because of the shock that you're in.
Yes, exactly. Even if it's good news, sometimes you can't hear it. And I've heard tales of patients not come back for their next appointment because they thought that they heard good news when they hadn't. And she was sitting behind a desk with a file open, and I thought, oh, this isn't great. And then she was very simple and straightforward, and she said, "You have a stage 3B melanoma." So there's 4 stages of melanoma. I'm not a medical expert, but and I knew that 3 was not good. And So it feels like being punched. No, it's fine.
Can we have that tea, please?
It feels like being punched in the stomach. And I know I'm nobody special. Hundreds and hundreds of people go through this all the time.
Cup of tea.
Thanks.
Thank you, John.
There'll be people having this exactly today.
And the only reason I want to talk about it really is, well, in a sense, I have no choice because it's so obvious. People point at me on the train, and I'll be appearing in the next production of Frankenstein at the National without any makeup. But you know, you do want to cry. I felt cold in my skin for 48 hours. And, you know, I slept terribly that night, and I imagined everything. I was going to be dead by the end of the week. I was not going to make it to Easter. Every single twinge in my body was another form of cancer, and they were going to discover when I went forward for the next thing that, you know, I was riddled with it and all the rest of it. So you go through all of that, and having a good imagination is probably a bad thing in that kind of moment. Some bits of advice that were really, really good. Don't use Dr. Google, because nearly all of the stuff that's out there is from a different country, different advice, out of date. All the statistics are wrong nowadays, and all you do is you fret yourself to, you know, into misery. Second thing, really good thing, was somebody said to me on the first day, tonight is going to be your worst night. It'll all crowd in. And you don't have to be strong. It's absolutely fine not to be strong. Sometimes people say, oh, you know, look on the positive side and all that kind of stuff. It's fine, you don't have to. You really don't have to. And the other thing that somebody said, which was really a really close friend, who read at our wedding, incidentally, and she said, you don't have to make any decisions about anything, and you shouldn't for the next 48 hours, including who you're going to tell and what you're going to tell them. Because I told all my mates in Parliament, because I was so blasé it was all going to be fine, I told them, yeah, we're getting the results at 12. So, of course, by the time it's 2 o'clock, they're all wondering, why on earth has he not been in touch? And I'm worrying about them, worrying about what they're thinking, and actually, of course, you know, Jared and I just needed to look after ourselves, and that's fine. So we got through all of that, and then they do so the standard thing is they took out something that size the first time round, and then I went to see the maxillofacial person, the Max Factor person, who was a Mr. Ashworth, and he was amazing, as was Dr. Martin. He was amazing because he said, right, Chris, you've probably been worrying about every single part of your body. Shall I just check it all for you? And of course, everything was fine. You know, I haven't got cancer of the ankle or whatever I'd invented in my head. And just that was an enormous relief. And he was just so rational and sane and sensible. That was lovely. And he said, we'll take a larger chunk out. And so since then, I've now had, they do an ultrasound on all your lymph nodes around your neck and stuff, because that would be where it would be most likely to go to first. And they do a scan of your, CT scan of your body. Both of those were all clear. And the chunk that they took out, to do that, they only took out that much. Wow. So that the bit that looks like a little bit of pork scratching is from my side.
Oh, I see.
So they take a bit from here, and you may have seen an earlier picture. So the bit that's on the screen,
yeah,
that sort of heart bit, or the bit on the left, that's the graft.
Yeah.
And that probably won't have hair on it, but the rest of it will. And I mean, you can see already that it's healing amazingly quickly. It's a bit bloody, but. So, I mean, at the moment, all the prognosis is really good. Oh, so the bit they cut out, that was clear too. So nothing else in it.
So you messaged me and you said, oh, I've got a 2-centimetre melanoma, it'll all be fine. And then I never heard from you again until about 3 or 4 days ago.
I know, and I think it's difficult for mates. And despite our occasional C2s, you are a mate, a very lovely mate. But it's, you know, you don't sort of want to bother everybody with medical updates all the time. And friends aren't sure, I think, whether to ask or not.
Of course.
For obvious reasons. But I have to say, so probably people think that politics at the moment is horrible. I've been in nearly every day, incidentally, because there's stuff I care about, and I'm so angry about this money that they're giving to all the English constituencies to try and bribe people for Brexit next week and all the rest of it, and not a penny for my constituency. And I said so in Parliament this week, and I've spoken most days, because I don't feel ill at all. But I think I lost the thread of what I was saying then.
Well, that's perfectly fine. Do you want to drink your tea while we're chatting?
I want a bit of tea.
And I would say, I suppose my next question would be impact on family and how Jared coped and how he, I'm guessing, had to be massively strong for both of you.
Yes. Well, he's a star. One of the interesting things, when we were sitting in the Prince Charles Hospital in Merthyr Tydfil, waiting for the second bout of surgery, and it was uncertain whether I was going to be under local anaesthetic for this, would you believe?
Wow.
Or general.
I hope you went for general.
Well, it's not up to me, but they decided, originally it was going to be local, and then they decided for general. One of the things that really struck me was that 15 years, because Jared came and was sitting there in the kind of room waiting, 15 years ago, there were no civil partnerships, there were no same-sex marriages, and I would have worried about having my partner there with me, because I'd have had to explain who he was. And no one today bats an eyelid.
Of course not.
I know, but you know, we say, of course not, but only 10, 15 years ago, nobody would have thought, of course not. People would have been absolutely scandalised if there had been two men sitting there holding hands in a hospital ward. So, hurrah, today's world is better than the world before.
Yeah, I remember explaining to my son just the other day that in the 1960s, I think, you know, during my lifetime, it was illegal for two men to have a relationship together.
Yes, completely, until 1967.
Yeah.
And he's been wonderful, and being strong is a difficult thing, because if everybody's trying to be strong, then it's difficult to be weak, and you do have to have moments when you're just weak together. And so I'm very fortunate in him and in my brother and all the other members of my family as well, who've been great.
Enough tears now. Tell me about Brexit.
Can I just do one other thing? We were in the supermarket and the security man came up to me and he said, Chris, he didn't say Chris, he didn't know who I was. He said, I'm really sorry. I mean, the youth violence today on the streets is really shocking. And I said, no, it's all right. It was a doctor. And he said, doctors are doing this now. And the other thing I'm really, really conscious of is that the NHS in Wales sometimes gets a bit of a bad rap. Sometimes it gets mentioned a lot in Prime Minister's questions. And I tell you now that if the Prime Minister ever says a nasty word about the National Health Service in Wales again, I will projectile vomit at her across the chamber.
Well, let's hope she doesn't then.
Yes, because other colleagues... But incidentally, I know people think that politics at the moment is really nasty, and there's lots of horrible stuff out there, you know, MPs with panic alarms in their houses and all the rest of it. But Tory MPs, Lib Dem MPs, nationalists have been absolutely gorgeous with me. You know, even the government chief whip has been sending me notes, checking that I'm OK. And I don't think that's nothing to do with him worrying whether I'm going to be there for the vote. It's genuine, you know, really genuine. And I've heard so many stories, you know, deeply personal stories from other MPs who've either had skin cancers themselves removed or lost family members to melanoma or other forms of cancer and so on. So it's just been... It's not a viper's nest. It is actually full of really, really good people. And I know there are people in different parties who hate people in other political parties. I think that's just so stupid.